All right. Thank you to the welcome to the Texas Foundations Fund webinar. Thank you for joining us this year. I see a lot of returning faces and names, so I'm excited about that. And we're doing this earlier this year. Typically, we do it in April, but that's because, not to ruin the suspense for anyone, hopefully you already know that we're starting Foundations Fund a lot earlier this cycle. And a change that we hope will benefit grantees. It'll certainly benefit us because it'll make the administration of this program a little bit easier. I'm Michael Wilt, External Relations Senior Manager at TSHAC. Anna will be taking the second half of this webinar. I'll be doing the first 6 slides, and we should get you out of here. I think it takes about 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes if there are a lot of questions, but hopefully we'll answer everything. You can drop questions in the chat throughout. Anna will monitor it while I'm talking, and I'll do the same when she's talking. And hopefully, most of you all know about this program and the nuts and bolts of it because many of you are coming back time and time again for this webinar and for as a returning grantee. So we're happy to see that. Next slide, Anna. Real quick about us. Hopefully, you know about us by now. We're a statewide 501c3 housing finance entity that the state set up 30 years ago. We updated our mission at the end of 2023. We facilitate, preserve, and expand affordable housing opportunities for Texans. And we do that through 3 primary program areas: build, buy, stay. On the build side, that's where we work with developers of housing and provide them some finance mechanisms to build housing, both single family and multifamily. On the buy, we help home buyers through down payment assistance and mortgage credit certificate programs. That's how most people know about us because we've served upwards of 130,000 Texas home buyers over the past 25, 30 years. And then lastly, on the stay side, that's where the Texas Foundations Fund program is housed because it's all the things that we do to keep households stably housed, whether that's through services that you provide, supportive services to keep people healthy and aging in place or just in place in a healthy environment, or through financial counseling or credit counseling, or also through critical home repairs, also to help people age in place and to remain safely in their homes. So whatever we can do to enable you all to help residents stay in their healthy, safe homes, that's all done through the Foundations Fund program and through other programs that we do to help nonprofits. Hopefully most of y'all know about the Texas Foundations Fund. It's been our longest standing grant program to serve very low income households and to provide stability for those people within those households. The major change this year is that we are considering applicants on a first come, first served basis, with the window to apply having opened up at the end of February. We will kind of evaluate them in tranches. So as we receive applications in these early months, we'll have a dedicated amount that we'll review. And we have 2 rounds of review that we have to do internally. And then assuming everybody meets the threshold criteria, then we'll release funds immediately. And so we'll do those in a series of batches on a continuing rolling basis, as opposed to every other year in prior years. We've had an application window that's open for a set amount of time, typically 5 weeks, and that was typically in April into May. And then we review everything over the summer and we get funding out the door at the end of the summer. But we really feel like this is going to speed things up and also make the program a lot easier to administer. We're kind of a victim of our own success because every year the number of grantees has grown, and on a scale to where it became almost unmanageable for us to administer all the grants at the same time. Upwards of 100 organizations now are receiving grant funding, which is great because we're hitting every corner of Texas, and we're also hitting organizations that are somewhat housing adjacent, but that provide housing services. So we've really stretched the breadth and scope of this grant program But, as I said, it hasn't been without its administrative struggles. And so this will help ease some of that. And it'll also, hopefully, if you all are doing some sort of budgeting exercise earlier in the year, you'll be able to anticipate funding earlier in the year as opposed to, the middle of the year or towards the end of the year. Um, Now, the rest of the things are largely the same. We are not requiring matching funds like we used to. You do not have to have an audit if your organization has a budget underneath $2 million. We'll still take an audit if you happen to have one, but we'll also take financial reviews or even a letter of support from a prior funder demonstrating that you are a good, high-performing nonprofit and that you were a good steward of the funds that they provided. Um, Same deal with the median family income that the program has to serve, 50% or 50% or below. And again, we've had this question many times in the past, if grantees can apply for a certain amount, and unfortunately you can't. Everybody within various tiers, depending on the size of your organization, gets the exact same amount of funding. I do not see any questions, so I'm going to move on to the next one. These are the threshold requirements. So if you're wondering if I submit an application, am I going to get grant funding? As long as you meet our threshold requirements, you will. You're eligible for funding. So the first being you have to be a 501c3 nonprofit. We do look for that IRS designation letter. You have to have 3 years of operating any housing program within your organization in Texas. It does not have to be the program you are seeking funding for, but you have to be in the housing program area for at least 3 years. Now, the program that you are seeking funding for has to be around for 2 years. And then some of the we've run into this issue in the past. Just we want assurances and a certification that you have not defaulted or been required to pay any sort of federal funding in the past 2 years. And then, like I mentioned, if you are an organization with a budget over $2 million, we are still requiring those audits. If it's below $2 million, like I said, it's either a financial review or an audit if you happen to have one, or just a letter of support. Now, since we are opening up the application much earlier this year, we understand that you might not have last year's audit prepared. You'll probably still be waiting for that, many organizations well into this year. So we're simply asking for the two most recent financial audits now. I believe that's how it's worded. Is that right, Anna? Okay, good. And then, or if you are going to get your audit pretty soon, you can just communicate that to us and we can wait a little bit to see if you get your audit. But if it's going to be months down the line, then just go ahead and upload your two most recent. Say it again, 50% and below, median family income for the household served. And then you have to serve any sort of underserved population. We don't ask for, this is not a criteria where you're being evaluated on. Anything that you say to demonstrate that you're serving an underserved population, we'll accept. I say that with supreme confidence. Now, there could be an outlier, but we've never seen it. So my guess is whatever you say is underserved, we're going to be fine with. The two big eligible program areas, home repair, services. In the home repair bucket, includes almost anything. It just has to be owner occupied. Now, there are some organizations that have applied for funding in the past that own the housing that they want to repair to bring it up to a more livable standard for their tenants, and that's fine as well. If you are repairing a home that your organization owns on behalf of an income qualified tenant, then that's an acceptable use of the funds in the home repair button. 9 times out of 10, though, we see owner occupied homes where, Meals on Wheels or Habitat or whoever's coming in and repairing it. On the services side, we expanded this category a couple years ago to take into account financial counseling, eviction prevention counseling, foreclosure prevention counseling. So if you're kind of familiar with the old services funding that we were doing, we've kept that in place. And this is most commonly for supportive housing developments, where you're bringing in that service enrichment to the property and will help fund that. But now, if you are a housing counselor, we can pay for that as well with the grant funds. Next slide. And then we have one slide back. We are also fairly flexible with how you use the funds. We have a baseline administrative allowance of 5%. If you need 10%, you have to provide a narrative in the application that says why you're asking for 10%. I, off the top of my head, can't think of anyone that we've rejected for the 10% authorization. You can use this for almost anything to administer your program, like the things listed. The most common question we used to get in the past was staff salaries, and that is an acceptable use of these funds. Now, I guarantee you're not going to get an amount that fully funds a full-time employee. It might cover a fraction of their salary over the year, maybe a third or a fourth, but it can definitely go towards those staff salary expenses. If you have a question about the use of funds, ask it. Email Anna. We get that routinely where somebody says, "Hey, not really sure if I can use it for this." We review that internally and will, kind of interpret the guidelines and make a decision. We tend to be flexible there as well. While we like everything to fit in the boxes of what's an acceptable use of grant funds, we understand that there are some unique exceptions. So don't assume that it's an unauthorized use. If you're uncertain, just email us quickly and we'll get back to you pretty quickly as well. Pause again. I don't see any. Oh, here's a question. Salary expenses are not administrative. No. Well, I mean, it depends on how you budget them internally. I don't know if you have like an admin bucket that includes all your personnel and HR costs. Typically, what most organizations apply this to is just administrative overhead to run a program that does not anticipate staff salary costs. The administrative cost is not in addition to the base funding. The administrative cost just comes out of it. So if you get a $20,000 award, $1,000 can go to administrative overhead, and then if you ask for the 10%, 2,000 of that $20,000 award can go to administrative overhead. Pause real quick for any other questions. I don't think I have any slides after this. I think Anna's on cue next.
All right. If you still have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm Anna Orendine. I am the External Relations Specialist here at TSHAC, and I've been administering this program for a couple years now. So I see a lot of familiar faces and names on this call, and it's nice to meet any new people. Um, to go over a example of the funding availability and timeline for this program, the beginning of each month, we'll gather, like Michael referenced earlier, a batch of any of the submitted applications that come in, and we'll take that batch, and then by mid-month, we'll let you know if your application has any deficiencies that need to be filled. So if as you're submitting something, it doesn't, your application doesn't necessarily need to be perfect, spotless. We'll reach out if there are anything else, any other documents, any sort of details or confirmations that we need. We'll work with you. And that especially goes to any new applicants. I think some of our previous applicants already know this. Um, but we'll give you about a week to fill those deficiencies. So be on the lookout. Whitelist my email address. I'll show it to you all later. Um, but once that deficiency period has closed by the late portion of whatever month we're in, So for instance, I think this first batch of applications will be the February and January batch. So we'll be reviewing everything in March. So by the late portion of March, in this example, we'll reach out to you, any grantees that have made it through the process, made it through all the reviewing, and we'll work with you all to sign a grant agreement via DocuSign. And once that grant agreement is signed and sent back to us, we will work on getting your grant funding out the door as quickly as possible, hopefully before the end of the month. And that way you can start working on whatever services or repairs that your program is aiming to do. One thing to note for this new program year is that because it's a rolling basis, we built in a collapse date for our funding tiers. And the funding tiers are based on your organization's budget size. So if you're a smaller organization, you'll fall into one bucket. If you're a mid-sized organization, you'll fall into another. And if you're a very large organization, you'll get another bucket of funding. And each bucket has funding that is sizable for whichever tier you fall into. But on March 31st of this year, the funding tiers will collapse. And so if, for example, a lot of small organizations rush to apply and all the small organization funding runs out before March 31st, then by March 31st, everything will go back into one big bucket of funding. So that way anybody can access it, if that makes sense. If not, let me know. I'll clarify further in the questions portion. But yeah, so there will be a collapse date. Mark your calendars. The funding round overall closes on August 1st of this year. This is the deadline to submit applications, but also to access grant funds. It gives us the rest of the month to review or get grant funding out the door before the end of our fiscal year. Um, so just if you intend to apply, but maybe want to wait until later, just make sure that date is on your calendar as well.
Um, if you have a deficiency, you're not going to lose your place in line. You will not go to the end of the line if there are some outstanding things you have to correct. You will retain your spot.
That's correct. Thank you, Michael. Um, so to apply, everything is online. We'll go to this link later and I'll walk you through step by step in the portal. But we recommend starting out by reviewing the guidelines for the program. If you are a returning applicant, they haven't changed too much. Michael reviewed any major changes, but especially if you're a new applicant, these are a good place to go if you ever have any questions about the program, even after you're accepted as a grantee, because it'll be a quick answer to whatever question you might have. We also do have an FAQ document for any application questions that we commonly get. We recommend starting there. And again, I'm always open for any other questions that you might have. But for the actual application, it begins with an eligibility quiz, and you will enter the portal and see just that quiz as a task to complete. And if you pass the quiz, you'll be given access to the rest of the application. And if you aren't eligible for our program, the eligibility quiz will let you know. Um, so once you have access to the application, you can go through each task. I'll walk you through it in a second. But just make sure that you review everything because you have to hit a very clearly marked green submit button for the system to show your application as completed. And again, all of this must be done at the latest by August 1st. But all that being said, if anyone has any questions before I move into the application walkthrough, I'm happy to take them now. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and look at what the portal looks like. Hearing none. Um, Here is our website. It's tsahc.org. This is our homepage. And when you go to the right-hand side of our website, under the Nonprofits and Governments tab, Texas Foundations Fund, the main page is right here, but you can go straight to annual grants. Once you are there, you can scroll down and see the 2025 application portion, and it has a bunch of information. Again, we have our guidelines right here, the link. If you click on it, it'll take you to the document, and you can scroll through and see all of our eligibility requirements, eligible program types, um, and even in the footnotes, like how we
No.
come up with the funding income levels. And so again, this is a really good document to start out with. Here's a FAQ document. It covers a lot of good information. But most importantly, here's another written step-by-step guide to applying. If you get off of this webinar and need a reminder, it's right here. Just keep scrolling. But to get into the application, if you hit apply now on our website, you will be taken to our online portal. And I'm already logged in and I've started an application, as I've seen many of you on this call have. But it'll give you a little bit of information about this grant cycle, eligible program types, and just again, a reminder of the deadline. If you are starting your own application, you're going to hit this green apply button, um, and it'll take you to an application. But since I've already started, I'm going to hit see my application. And again, I have a couple of tasks in here, but I'll walk you through. You'll start with the eligibility quiz, which because this is my test application, you can see all the other tasks in the application itself. But when you're first starting out, you will just see this eligibility quiz listed as a task. And once you go through this quiz, it'll take you step by step. So, is your organization a 501(c)(3) nonprofit? If I say no, it'll let you know that you're ineligible. But if you say yes, it'll show you the next question and so on and so forth. Um, so just to walk you through, it'll ask you like, what kind of program are you requesting grant funding for? Will you ensure that this grant exclusively goes to serving households that earn at or below 50% of the area median income? Is it just going to be contained to households within Texas? Will you spend all of your grant funding within the application year that we have listed on our website, but also within the grant agreement that will be received after you submit your application? Yes. Um,
I know. Well, the two that I was looking at immediately are Clayton, Baxter.
Rhonda,
Mhm.
were you asking about specific counties? Okay. All right. Rhonda, if you do have any questions, let me know. But going back to the eligibility quiz, this is again referencing the financial requirements or audits or alternative documents that Michael was discussing later. Do you have any sort of um, documents that will support this financial requirement? Yes. Um, do you have 3 years of operating housing programs in Texas? Yes. And do you have at least 2 years of established experience with the program that you are requesting funding for? Yes. And again, you haven't defaulted on any loans or federal funding grants in the past 2 years? Oh, if you have, you're ineligible. But no, you are not. Uh, required, you haven't repaid it, you're good to go, or haven't had to repay it, you're good to go. And then this question on the quiz is just a reminder to any of the returning applicants um, that if you were a 2023 grantee of ours, you just need to have your final report turned in before we can send you any funding. You can still apply, but we'll again reach out to remind you that you need to submit your 2023 report before we feel comfortable sending you more money. Granted, most people have from 2023 have sent in their final report. But if you have any questions and you're on this call and you know you were returning an applicant, feel free to reach out. I can confirm your eligibility for that. But
Victor,
for this,
Victor had a question, Anna, in the chat.
okay. Um,
Returning applicants, do they have to go through the eligibility quiz? I think they do.
Yes, the system, there's not a way for us to screen and pre-approve any returning applicants. So you still have to go through it. I know I'm taking some time to explain everything, but it's really pretty quick to run through. Like when I'm testing things, I just go real quick. It can be done in less than 5 minutes. So hopefully it's not too much of a hassle. Any other questions? All right. So if you make it through the eligibility quiz, excuse me, it'll let you know that you're eligible to apply, and it'll give you a chance to put in your organization name, your name, or the best contact for us to reach out to, as well as your email address. If you're working on this quiz and for whatever reason you need to pause real quick, you can hit save and continue editing, and that will save your progress. But since this quiz is pretty quick and we're on a call, I'm going to hit mark as complete. And then you'll see this green check mark right here at the top and on the left-hand side as it lists out all your tasks. That'll know that's the system showing you that, hey, this is complete, it's good to go. It counts as 100% progress. But once you pass this quiz and it's submitted as complete, then you will be given access to all the different application tasks, including the main portion, which is the form. I've already gone in and filled it out, but it'll basically ask you, again, organization name, your address. One note is that if you, depending on where your mailing address is, versus a physical address, we've had this happen in the past. Feel free to put whichever, but as we get to on this portion of the application, but as we get to the end, we will ask for the best mailing address, especially if your organization wants to receive funding via mail check. But so if you have any question as to what address to put there, if you do have two addresses that your organization likes to use, just you have options. But again, a good phone number, either for your organization or for the primary contact that will be reaching out to. Make sure that this contact is good for us to reach out to, especially if we have find any deficiencies with your application. It'll help speed up the process, and we won't have to bug whoever answers your main line. And so I went through this application. I pretended I was a previous awardee for or serving people in Travis County. We have all of the Texas counties listed here. Um, my example application is providing supportive services, and this household income is just another way for you to certify and be reminded that, yes, you will be able to confirm that you're serving extremely low income and low income households at or below 50% of the area median income. And it's just a yes or no question. The special populations, as we referenced in the presentation, it's less a requirement that will halt or determine your application, whether your application moves forward. It's more of a question for us. It gives us an opportunity to see if you're serving anyone that is an underserved population, and gives you a chance to kind of share more about your program. So again, this is just it's not you don't have to have a special population, is what I'm trying to say. It can just be that you're serving people at or below 50% area median income. As we move into the program narratives, the first question is all about your organization as a whole. When was it founded? When did you first start offering the housing related programs and services? And when did you specifically begin the program that you're seeking funding for? Um, you can make this as brief or as long as you would like. We love details, but as long as you answer the prompts in the question, we're good to go. Um, Question two is getting more information about the program that you're requesting funding for specifically, including how many households are you aiming to fund or aiming to serve with the funding that you'll receive and overall annually in the program. Um, how do you document the income requirements for each household? And what, if you are serving a special population, how do you define that how within your organization? How do you ensure that you're serving your intended population? That's question two. Um, Question three allows you to really go into why this funding is needed. What needs are you meeting within your community? You can provide statistics, data. Uh, if you have a long waiting list, feel free to share that here. Any sort of information that backs up your claim that, hey, this is a necessary service that we're providing, that goes right here. It's also a chance to share any community partnerships that you have that promote your program and help you deliver your good work. Question four is documenting the impact. What metrics and demographic information do you collect? And how do you incorporate participant feedback? Because that's always nice to hear, is that you're talking to your clients. Question five is an upload, and it is specifically what we're looking for is a budget of proposed or expected expenses for the program that you're requesting funding for. So, for instance, if you're a critical repair uh, grantee or applicant, then this will include, it could include, I don't know, contractor fees or lumber or, different, it gives us an idea of what you're planning and what you want to do, what you might want to do with the money that we provide you. Um, Question six is where if you want up to 10% of administrative funding, then you can put that here. Otherwise, you're automatically allowed to use up to 5% of the grant award towards administrative costs. Question seven is if you do have any sort of complaints, litigation, disputes, anything going on with your organization, this is an opportunity to explain what's happening. And of course, if you have none, then just put not applicable. That's fine. Moving on towards the organization attachments, we do want you to upload your IRS 501c3 designation letter, just to ensure that, yes, you are a 501c3 nonprofit. We'll also ask you to check a couple certifications. Everybody will check nine that apply across the board to all applicants. But if you're a critical repair applicant, you'll have to fill out these two. But since my example application is doing supportive services, I only have to check this section. So hopefully that helps you know which ones are relevant for your organization, but you do have to check all of the relevant ones for whichever program type you are applying for. We also provide more information about HUD and the Texas Workforce Commissions for fair housing purposes. That's a resource. But the final portions of this application form is just getting more information about how you promote your grant. How do you recognize the efforts that you're doing in your community? And, do you promote it on social media? Do you do any sort of other fun events? Let us know. Um, and the very final portion of the application form is how would you like your payment? You can choose an electronic ACH payment or a mailed check, but either way, you are going to have to upload a document that either is the ACH request form that's linked right here for an electronic payment. You'll be asked to provide your banking information. But if you would prefer mail check, please just open up a Word document, put in your preferred point of contact, and also your preferred mailing address. Just to confirm, again, it's come up in the past. We don't want to mail your money to the wrong place. So just make sure you do that. Um, and as you're working on it, again, you can hit save and continue editing, but you'll want to, at the very end of everything, hit mark as complete. Um, and you can move on to the upload portions. As you go through these, for example, this one is asking you to upload a list of your board of directors, your officers, and key staff members. This you can hide and show the different task instructions. If it you don't see anything, just make sure to click that. You can also see the accepted formats for each upload task. They might differ, but if you need me to open up different formats, please contact me. But we will upload a test file just to show you. I'm going to go and upload a portion of the guidelines because that's my test upload. And once you have that uploaded and ready to go, hit mark is complete. And again, you'll get the green check mark to say that, hey, this portion is good to go. You've completed it. Um, for our, we will ask you to upload your most recent financial statements. In these statements specifically are your balance sheet and your income statement. And these are accounting documents. So if you have any questions or need clarification about what these are, please reach out. Um, we ask that these two be dated the same and dated no earlier than November 31st, 2024. Um, Having them dated the same allows our accounting reviewers, our financial reviewers to make sure that it's comparing apples to apples. We also will ask that you upload your overall organizational operating budget for 2025. This will help us place you in the correct budget tier. So, for example, if you are a large organization, you'll really want to make sure that you upload your operating budget. One, because it's required to submit your application, but two, because it'll help us know, like, hey, you get slightly more funding than the smaller organizations just to make things a little bit equitable. And again, as you're going through these, make sure to mark them as complete. But financial requirements, again, if you have a larger organization where your budget is above $2 million, you'll need your two most recent audits. If you don't have 2024, again, that's fine. Just do submit your 2022 and 2023. And it we ask for the auditor required communication letters. Usually that's attached, but if it's not, please submit those as well, in addition to the OMB circular audits. For smaller organizations that have budgets below $2 million, again, you can submit financial reviews and a letter of support.
Real quick on it, there are a couple questions in the chat that I was going to bring to everyone's attention. The first one
Sure.
was from Kate that I answered in the chat, and that's about the reporting requirements. Nobody will have a 20, well, let me take that back. We're only looking for reporting up through 2023 grant year. You don't have to have your 2024 report turned in to access this new funding because for everyone, the report's not due until later in the year. There are organizations that have gotten disaster recovery funds through Texas Foundations Fund. You have to be current on that reporting as well. But again, that's only going to apply to 2023 disaster funds that we may have sent your organization. I don't think we awarded any disaster funds early enough in 2024 to where any reporting would be due at this time. So we're really looking for you to be up to date on any sort of 2023 grant funding you would have received. Um, and then to Donna's question, I'm pretty sure we're only looking for a name and affiliation for board members.
Right. I'm, I think that's correct.
We like, I mean, some people just upload a Word doc with the board members listed, their names, and sometimes title and affiliation, and that's it. That's all we're looking for.
All right. Um, so finishing up the application tasks, we will ask you for your IRS Form 990 and 990T if it applies. You can also upload if your organization is small enough. I believe it's the 990N or the 990EZ. We've gotten a few of those in the past, and we are happy to work with you there. Um, and again, if you don't have your 2024 IRS Form 990, please just submit whichever is the most recent that you have. Um, in this upload, we ask that you provide a list of all your government, corporate, or foundation contributors for the past 3 years, listed by year and including the amounts and what, if it went to a specific program, what it funded. Um, we do ask 2024, 2022, and 2023 be listed. And we will also ask for program funding sources. So just an anticipated list, even if it's just hopeful at this point, of funding sources for 2025. It's likely that our grant, the Texas Foundations Fund grant, will be listed on here, but any other grants that you might be applying for or any other funding that you're hoping comes in, we just like to know what you have planned. But to finish this up, once you have all these green check marks listed in the left-hand side of the portal, it means you're good to go. You can, it'll tell you that you have all of the tasks complete, 9 out of 9, and you can hit review, and you can walk through all of your answers. But most importantly, you will want to there we go. You'll want to hit this green submit button. It is, again, the way that our system knows that you're done. And we'll try to catch any applicants that are finished but haven't hit submit. We'll do our best to help you out there. But if you want the system to automatically say, hey, this one's done, make sure to hit submit. It'll ask you if you're sure. And again, you can review it here. And then it'll let you know, hey, it's submitted, you're done. You should also get an email that confirms that it's been submitted. It might go to your spam as it is a system email. But if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me. Here's my contact information on the website in our Texas Foundations Fund page. That's my phone number. Email, I would say, is the quickest way to reach me. But yeah, if you have any other questions, please feel free to let me know. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if
There's
you have
one more,
questions
Anna.
now,
You'll need to share your screen
oh,
for Trish.
okay. Let me redo that. All right, Trish, what can I help you with?
She wants to see the budget forms.
The budget forms. That
Are they the same as last time?
they should be.
Can you just, because one was for what do you have budgeted this year? Because that gives you guys an indicator of how much money. And then you also said, what did you spend?
Are is it the proposed expenses? Where
Yes.
is it?
You have a proposed expense and then you
Hmm.
have a pending sources, but they both ask
Oh,
budget questions in different years.
okay, hang on. Let me pause sharing my screen real quick because I think what we used to do was link it within the example form, I think is what you're referring to. Correct me if I'm wrong. We used to share a link, but we found that a majority of grantees were just uploading the one that their organization already has. So if you need an example form that you want to fill out as a template, if that's easiest, let me know. I will go and find it. So that way I can show you on this call. Okay, let's see. So it's a Word document again, so you can fill it out. And if you need this, just let me know. But this is our example form that we have sent to people in the past. And it'll provide like an example for supportive services. So if you want funding to go towards or your program expenses to go towards providing a substance abuse counselor to your clients and list it out here. You could also say like, oh, we're operating a food bank, and so we're going to provide like, I don't know, toiletries. We're going to provide, I don't know,
So
upfront.
I have a question. Can you hear me on audio?
Yes, you're a little bit muted.
Hmm.
What was your question, Trish?
Um, so if this form was for this year, then it would say 2025 program, correct? And that means 2025, 20.
Yes, this one is the one from last year, but if
Okay,
you email
so let's just
me,
assume that said 2025.
yes,
And
it's
it's the same
it'll
form.
stay the same, and you
Okay,
just update it.
okay.
But
So my question is, when it says proposed expenses, so we have a board approved budget. So let's say it's $100,000
okay.
in our budget of proposed expenses. Actual expenses, well, the year hasn't happened yet. So it gets confusing as to what is meant by actual expense.
So I think specifically within this form, in the past we have asked grant applicants and grantees to just fill out in the initial application the proposed expenses, and then save this actual expenses column for the final report, just
Uh-huh.
to help ex explore any differences between what was expected and what actually happened. Um, So you don't, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe you actually need to put actual expenses for the application itself. It's more future looking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, or if you just want to look at last year's budget and compare the two,
Yeah.
what you had budgeted versus what you actually spent.
Well, that was my question. And it's caused us confusion internally over the years with different people. And I'm the current person that's trying to figure this out from the previous person. So like our proposed expenses, let's say for 2025 in our budget are 100,000. And so I think in previous, like last year, when we looked at actual expenses, we went back to 2024. So we're saying, okay, well, our proposed expenses this year are 100,000, but our actual expenses last year were 125,000. But they're different years.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I can understand why there would be confusion. We can talk about that internally to see if there's a way we can streamline
Okay.
that or make it easier. I mean, we could figure that out this cycle without messing things up, and it's certainly something
Well,
we can fix
I mean, I'm
next.
right now, I'm actually, as we speak, I'm going through all the numbers that we had previously. And between years and between actual, between, it's it's getting more complicated than I feel like it should be or that you guys want it to be.
Well, yeah, then just it shouldn't like I don't want to create a bunch of work for you, especially for something that is not going to disqualify you if
Okay.
if the expenses are off and if you're ballparking it,
Okay. And
that's
then,
fine.
okay, cool. And then there's two forms. I think we had one form for the proposed expenses and actual expenses. Again, we were going back to the previous year. And then under pending sources, basically for what's in our 2025 budget, say 100,000, you want to know where we plan to get those sources of revenue.
Yeah, if there's consistent funding for that.
Okay. But kind of what I hear you saying is we can, in the application, we can ignore the actuals until we get to the reporting stage.
If you
Or we,
want, yeah, that's fine.
or we can just indicate that they're actual expenses this year.
Yeah, you can just drop in a note that says we don't know what our expenses are because we haven't expended anything.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad we're overcomplicating this then. And basically, as long as we tell you what our budget is, tell you what we spent and what we asked for last year. But again, what we proposed and then what we spent, I don't know. It just gets confusing between years and between calendar years.
Well, no, I get that. That's valuable feedback. And we haven't really taken a hard look at this section of the application in a while. So I'm glad you brought that up. We'll certainly try and figure out a way to make more sense. And when we were giving away bigger awards, upwards of $50,000,
Uh-huh.
this is the kind of, and this was a scored application. This was the kind of thing that we were drilling down into to see, how much they needed, $50,000 or
Okay.
whatever. Now that we have lower amounts and it's just a threshold thing, we're mainly just doing a lot of checking the
Gotcha.
boxes and not a whole lot
Okay.
of digging into it.
So I'm over here sweating and like, I don't understand. Okay, we went back three
No, this
years
is
on the
all
last
threshold
report.
review. It's not a critical review.
Gotcha. Okay. The other thing, just while we're talking about it, is that the other thing that was getting, I think, confusing as I'm looking through between the grant writer and the finance person, what was done is, so, our numbers we're pulling on the budget on our fiscal year, which is the calendar year, January through January. Very simple. We have that budget. It's approved by the board. We send that to our budget for the year. So even though our grant award, like last time, was August through August, the budget we're using is for the year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of didn't hear the end of that though.
Oh, well, in other words, the budget we're giving is for the calendar year because that's our fiscal.
Oh, yeah.
And the grant
Everybody's
year is
got
different.
different fiscal calendar years, whatever.
Okay, so it doesn't have to match the August through August like it was.
No, whatever year you're going off of is your year. Like we're
You
not
just
going to
made
ask
my
you to,
life a lot
right.
easier. Thank you.
Um,
Okay. As long as we're giving your numbers and they're accurate and they're from our actual, approved documents and audited documents, we're good.
right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'm gonna sleep easier tonight.
Thanks, Trish.
Okay.
Victor, there's no ability for you to request any amount. That's not an option in the application. The funding amounts are static within budget tiers for your organization.
I believe they're also listed in the guidelines. If you would
Yeah,
like
they are.
to look at them,
You just
Trish.
scrolled past it
Oh, yep.
at the
Sounds
very
like me.
bottom of one of the pages, right there.
There we go. Yes, the grant sizes are listed right here. Any other questions? I know we're about to come up on 1 o'clock.
I would strongly encourage you to apply by March 31st. If there's a takeaway from this, that's, we've got 1.25 million in grant funding available. So if you divide that by three, it's 400,000 something per tier. And so to kind of like lock into your tier and the guaranteed funding, I would get it in before the 31st of next month.
All right. Well, if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to let me know. Again, I will put my email in the chat. Um, I'm more than happy to answer any other questions, especially if you're new or returning grantee with questions about the application. If you have any issues with the portal, please let me know. I'm here to help. So, looking forward to seeing all your applications come in.
Thanks, everyone.